linebacker Jermaine Pratt with a 90.1 overall grade. Wide receiver T. Higgins an 82.6. Offensive tackle Orlando Brown Jr. 75.0. Tight end Mike Gesicki a 73.9. Edge rusher Joseph Osai with a 73.8. Joe Burrow, 93.6 overall grade in this one. On Denver's side, edge rusher DeAndre Tillman with a 91.3. Defensive tackle John Franklin Meyer with a 91.1. Wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr. an 88.5. Offensive tackle Garrett Bowles with a 79.7. Offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey a 79.3. And then Bo Nix a 71.4. Lots to talk about in this one. So that told the story. What do we got?
We have Joe Burrow. That's simple. We have Joe Burrow. And we have Joe Burrow putting up his career high 93.6 overall grade. The highest of his career.
Wow.
Yeah. The best.
Didn't realize that.
We saw the best Joe Burrow we could possibly see. And I mean, the run he's on and what he's trying to do carrying this team. Trevor, the processing, the all-22 tape of Joe Burrow in this game is even crazier than watching it live. Because the level of processing, it's at a Peyton Manning level type of processing for him the way he sees the field. We usually talk about like stable, unstable being that cutoff of 2.5 seconds, right? With Burrow, it's even quicker than that. Let me give you his stats on throws that he let go of in 2 seconds or less. I'm taking the extra half off of it. 27 for 31 for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an 89.7 passing grade. On 2 seconds or less, not 2. Usually I'm doing this with 2.5. I'm cutting that part out. The speed at which he sees defenses and knows where he wants to go with the football and accurately gets it there is honestly, it's better than anybody. And I know Allen's having a great year and he can do all the freak things, and Lamar can do all the freak things, and he's having his best year as a passer. But this is a Peyton Manning level of football IQ and processing and what he can do from the pocket. It is absolutely unreal. In 2 seconds or less this season, for the whole year, it's crazy. 90.2 passing grade, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And one of those picks wasn't even his fault. It's just silly at this point. The fact that you can have a quarterback this good and you're most likely going to miss the playoffs, it's hard to believe. Because remember before the season we were messing around and I said during our Bengals preview, 5,000 yards for Burrow? I believe he needs 352 next week against the Steelers to hit that. There's a chance he has a 5,000-yard, 40-touchdown, 90-something grade season, and they're going to miss the playoffs. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I want to jump in there because I tweeted this after the game. You know, I tweeted a meme of the guy standing up and saying something controversial, and it was, we've heard for so many weeks now, like, well, if the Bengals were better, if their record was better, if they were going to make the playoffs, Joe Burrow would be right there for MVP. The Bengals being bad should help his case for MVP. Why does it hurt it? Them being as bad as they are should actually help Joe Burrow's case to win MVP. Now, the people that responded to me, and I'm not necessarily saying that they're wrong, but the people with an actual argument against me were saying, or against that, were saying, like, well, if the Bengals defense was better, and therefore if their record was better, he would not have as many stats as he would. Like, he wouldn't lead the league in touchdowns thrown. He wouldn't lead the league in passing yards. But my argument for why Joe Burrow should be right there for MVP, yes, obviously the stats are part of that, but that's not the only reason why. If the defense were better and you were to take away some of those stats, Joe Burrow would still be playing, like you said, like Peyton Manning. He'd still be playing at an assassin-like level. And that's something that you sort of have to look at the efficiency numbers, those metrics, and you just got to watch the tape to watch how well this dude is playing the quarterback position. So to me, it's less about the volume stats, and it's more about just they put everything on his plate. There's not a lot to help him. There's not a ton of play action. There's not a ton of motion. It's basically Joe. Read the defense before the snap, know exactly where to go with the ball, exactly when to get it out of your hands, and exactly where to put it. And he does almost every single time. That's why his season's unbelievable. That's why he's an MVP, because without Joe Burrow, this team still has a chance to make the playoffs. Without Joe Burrow, they'd have won 3 games this year. 3. And he is, I mean, his wins, the way that he is playing, his wins above average metric, I don't know if it's the highest this season, but it feels like it should, again, be right there with some of the best that we're talking about with MVP. So that was the only reason why I was saying that. Is like, oh, we go like, oh man, can you imagine if the Bengals were right there to make the playoffs, or if they were in the playoffs, we'd be talking about him as an MVP. We should be talking about him as an MVP anyways. Stat told the story for me. I'm going to go on the opposite side of the coin. It's actually the Bengals defense, but it's in the worst way. A 52.2 overall grade from the Bengals defense in this game. No category. So overall, run defense, pass rush, coverage, no category did they have a grade above 60 in this game. So once again, this was a game that was defined by the Bengals defense and inability to stop teams for 60 minutes. Because Bo Nix was not playing great in this game. Outside of 2 or 3 throws that were really impressive, it was not a great wire-to-wire Bo Nix game. But they were still in the game when it was all said and done because they could still move the football because of the Bengals defense. So to me, the stat that told the story, you look at how well Joe Burrow was playing in this game. Should have been a somewhat easy win, but it wasn't because the Bengals can't play defense this year. So that's sort of my stat that told the story there with the Bengals defense. Do you have any more things on Joe Burrow or the Bengals defense before we do?
Your question on the wins above replacement. So Lamar Jackson is second with 3.6. Joe Burrow's the one guy ahead of him with 4.8.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's ridiculous. That's beyond ridiculous when you've got everyone else bunched together. Obviously, it's usually a decimal point kind of game here. Joe Burrow ahead of Lamar Jackson in WAR by more than an entire win. I mean, that's just – there is – I think you're right. In the argument of most valuable player and who is most valuable – because how many – let's just say we put an average quarterback on the Ravens. Probably still somewhere around a wild card team, right? With Derrick Henry. Actually, it's essentially the same team as Tennessee had with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, right? Pretty good defense, Derrick Henry, blah blah blah. Okay, Josh Allen's the other one where I go, I don't think they would win a ton of games without him. But Burrow, this team that they wouldn't win anything. They're
winning 3 games.
He has to play at a special. I'm not sure they win a single game. He has to play at a special level just for them to win ball games like this. I mean, it's crazy. No, Burrow, if they do make the playoffs, we have a really fun argument of valuable versus obviously, and his stats are incredible too. It's not like the passing stats aren't there, but I think you'd have a terrific argument if they made the playoffs. I think you have a really good one even if he doesn't. I mean, look at, again, it's to the point of, I don't know that they would win a single game without him. I really don't.
Mm-hmm. I mean, New England's got 2 wins, so they'd win a game. But again, I think they're a 3-win team without Joe Burrow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Most disappointing, real quick, and the guys that Burrow attacked, he didn't go at Pat Surtain a whole lot, and rightfully so. That's one of the best corners in football. But Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan, it's a rough one. They were the victims of the Burrow hot streak here, especially with T. Higgins playing the way he played. They combined to allow 17 catches, 212 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Look, I think that's kind of what you're going to do against the Broncos. You're not going to throw at Surtain all night. That's not a thing. If he's shadowing Chase, it is what it is. Big night for T. Higgins to have the night he did against the other guys in the lineup. So now the Broncos, their backs are against the wall. And I know, it's at home and they get to play the Chiefs, probably play the Chiefs backups, Carson Wentz or whoever's going to be in there. But we saw it with the Colts yesterday. Don't take it for granted. Don't ever take it for granted. Those guys are professionals, and you know darn well they'll take some pride if they knock you out of the playoffs.
Can't take anything for granted. I think that's what this week has taught us. Most disappointing for me, Alex Kappa in this game really struggled. 2 sacks allowed. He's beaten by defenders 8 times, 6 pressures allowed, 4.8 pass blocking grade in this one. So he was the most disappointing along the offensive line. But then for the most impressive, I'll go back to the Bengals offensive line. Now shout out to Orlando Brown Jr. 84 total snaps in this one, 0 sacks, only 2 pressures allowed. And he said that he was playing on a broken leg, so he was there was a video of him yelling when he was going back into the tunnel or coming out of the tunnel, and he talked about that after the game. I'll read the quote here. I was really emotional there at the end of the game, obviously, when he was saying that he was doing all this with a broken leg. My fibula has been broken in 2 separate spots. That's what I've been dealing with all season. It's an extremely unique injury. To get specific, my fibula and tibia are fused together because I grew so quickly as a child on both legs. So it's considered a weight-bearing bone. It's something that I've been having to obviously deal with, and the reason why I've missed some time, among other things, it's been around that leg. So for him to play well in this one and have a lot of pride being out there, shout out to Orlando Brown Jr. as my most impressive.
You had 2 guys. You had Brown playing on one leg, and then at least for the first half, you had Amarius Mims playing with one hand. He was playing with a club on his hand and then had to come out because it was bothering him too. So, I mean, just the amount of adversity this Bengals team has gone through is just really something.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.